What's going on, everybody? It is the Tipping Point with Mike Tipton. We are live on Facebook, on X, on YouTube, and, of course, on Roku via the National Streaming Sports app. Thank you all so much for tuning in to today's show. A lot of stuff that we're going to be covering today, but remember that we are brought to you by our friends over at RevAutoCarCare.com. That's RevAutoCarCare.com. Use promo code Tipton33, save up to 15%. You can save on things like the complete wheel cleaning kit. Trust me, as a dude that loves my car, the wheels being clean is one of my favorite things to see, especially whenever the tires are nice and black and shiny and the rims are looking nice and good. That's one of my favorite things to do. Check out all the different products they have at RevAutoCarCare.com and use promo code Tipton33. A little bit later on today at about 4 o'clock El Paso time, 6 o'clock Eastern, I am going to be live with Mac and Linda McGrath. They wanted to interview me on National Streaming Sports, so we'll see kind of how this goes as they introduce me to a little bit more of their audience. So I'm not too sure if they're going to be happy about that, if they're going to be disappointed in that, whatever it's going to be, but it's going to be a fun time. I'm looking forward to it. I hope that y'all tune in. I'll share the link. We'll be doing all that stuff as we move on with National Streaming Sports, and we're doing all kinds of cool stuff with National Streaming Sports going on in the future. Now, I wanted to kick today's show off with talking about the Philadelphia Eagles and the possibility that Jalen Hurts is still in concussion protocol. And I have to believe that there is no way, like just absolutely no chance in hell, that Jalen Hurts is not going to be playing in the first round of the playoffs. Like I cannot see a scenario where we've seen in the NFL myriad number of times the amount of people that are quote unquote injured that come back from the injury before they're supposed to simply to play in a regular season game. I cannot see the possibility of Jalen Hurts missing the first round of the playoffs. Like, if he's still in concussion protocol, number one, make sure you're good. But number two, maybe you lie a little bit to the doctors. You tell them like, oh no, I'm good. Like we're totally good. Everything's fine. I don't see anything blurry at all. Because I assure you, with the way that Philadelphia is, if Jalen Hurts doesn't show up to that game, if Jalen Hurts is out against the Green Bay Packers, and this can obviously change as I'm doing the show, but as of what I've seen recently, is Jalen Hurts is still in concussion protocol and is still not necessarily practicing with the team. Like, he's been through walkthroughs, he's been doing all those things, but Jalen Hurts cannot miss the first round of the playoffs. That is a death sentence for the Philadelphia Eagles, and they cannot have an early exodus out of the playoffs following the collapse that they had last year. Medusa Design saying, Tip, good morning, sunshine. Good morning to you as well. Joining me here on a cold, was supposed to be snowy El Paso morning. 0 snow in El Paso. Could have told you that, guys. Like, I guess the Northeast got a little bit of snow last night. Northeast El Paso, not Northeast United States, but Northeast El Paso. It smattered a little bit, but 0 snow. I was so disappointed. Like I'm happy my kids get to stay home a couple hours later. I kind of like the idea of school starting for them at least at 9 o'clock and not 7 o'clock in the morning. So maybe that's something that, the school districts can take into consideration. I know one of the school districts here already a 4-day school week. So maybe that's something we take into consideration, given the amount of issues some school districts are facing at the current moment. But I wake up here in El Paso, and I'm like, there's no snow on the ground. I'm super disappointed. I knew there wasn't going to be snow, but I'm still disappointed in the fact that there is no snow. And I'm sitting here just, like, thinking to myself, how long has it been since we had snow? And I thought it was last year, but now I got to do research because it feels like it's been forever. And for those of you that live on the East Coast or, up north or anything of that nature, congratulations to you. You get to see snow every now and again. We get maybe, and I mean maybe, it's like whenever you get a dessert at a nice fancy restaurant and they just tap the powdered sugar to fall down onto like your lava cake or whatever like that. That's the amount of snow we get in El Paso. So it would be nice once in a while to just get something, literally anything. I think we get 8 inches of rain annually, right? Like That's a weekend for some places. When I lived in Alaska, the summertime, we had 128 inches of rain in just the summertime. Wake up in El Paso, and my whole thing now that I'm like older, I'm in tremendous amounts of pain. I am just constantly like, trying to do body maintenance and all that. My whole thing now is, if I'm going to feel this way, at least give me some sort of precipitation. Give me some sort of rain. Give me some sort of snow. Even if it was like, my sidewalk was covered in a little bit, I'd have been happy. Waking up to nothing and being in this much pain just seems like a complete waste of time. But maybe that's just me being old man, get off my lawn guy now, right? Maybe that's what I have evolved into as a human being, is old man, get off my lawn type of guy. Tommy Cananza saying good morning, Tip. Good morning to you, Tommy. Good morning to the people that are tuned in right now that normally can't tune in because they're at work or doing something of that nature. Normally, we have nice sunshiny days. It's just cold for no absolute reason here in El Paso. If I wanted to be cold, I'd move back up to Alaska. I'm a bit of a jerk. I'm sorry, guys. This morning I'm being a little bit of a jerk. I apologize sincerely. But as I started the show off, I was talking about the possibility of the Philadelphia Eagles not having Jalen Hurts. I know that that's going to make Tommy Cananza upset because he doesn't want me to talk about the Philadelphia Eagles, but seeing that here we are 3 weeks removed, that Jalen Hurts is still in concussion protocol, one, makes you wonder how bad of a concussion is it, but two, what does he have to do to get out of concussion protocol in order to rejoin the Philadelphia Eagles? Again, I hope Philadelphia loses, but I also know that if Philadelphia loses without Jalen Hurts, it creates a bunch of excuses. And the excuse machine just keeps going and going and going and compounding and doing all the stuff that the excuse machine does with the Philadelphia Eagle fan base, because that's all they do is just make up excuses as to why their franchise is absolutely garbage, right? Like we could sit there and talk negatively about the Dallas Cowboys all the time, but let's talk a little bit about the Philadelphia Eagles and their shortcomings and their failings throughout the entirety of that franchise, right? The Buffalo Bills get called a perennial loser because they made it to the Super Bowl 4 years in a row and didn't win one. The Philadelphia Eagles made it to 4 straight NFC championship games, making 1 Super Bowl and losing. 52 years in order for them to get their first Super Bowl victory. And we're inching up closer and closer and closer and closer and closer to a decade now of just ineptitude from the Philadelphia Eagles. Linda McGrath saying, hey, Mike, we're watching on Roku TV. Think of all the tax money you are saving in Texas. Oh, if only it was that simple. I genuinely believe that the city of El Paso is the highest taxed city in the state of Texas without all the amenities that Dallas, Houston, Austin, San Antonio have. It's an insane conundrum to think about when you look at the amount of taxes that are in El Paso, and then especially the school district that I'm in. Jesus. One of these days, I'm not going to do it now. But one of these days I'm going to create a comedy routine about my 2 years, 3 years as a teacher, because you can't write some of the stuff that happened during the tenure that I had as a teacher. So I'm looking forward to maybe the day that comes out. And it's not going to last as long as it did for me to air out my grievances versus iHeart, but we'll get there. It's going to be a full-on comedy routine because that's the only way I can deal with that stuff. Taxes in El Paso, trust me, not much that you're saving on. Not to mention the living wages and all that. Texas still has a $7.25 minimum wage. Love me some Texas. We got to do better, Texas. But getting back over to sports and thinking about like the Eagles and everything that's going on with them. I still believe that with a healthy Jalen Hurts, this team is going to lose. I just watch Green Bay and I see a better team. I look at Philadelphia and I see flaws, right? And it's crazy to say that about the second seeded team in the NFC, but I just see so many flaws on this team. As Adriana Diaz saying, good morning to you, Adriana, over in the Dallas Metroplex area. Hopefully you are staying nice and warm. It's not all icy over there as it normally is during this type of year. But Philadelphia cannot lose this game. Whether or not you have Jalen Hurts, Philadelphia, for the franchise, cannot lose this game against the Green Bay Packers. Think of how devastating of a year it would be for Philadelphia to have Saquon Barkley, an MVP finalist, a guy that rushed for over 2,000 yards, was this close to breaking Eric Dickerson's record. To have him on your team, to have all the hype on your team because you still have a great quarterback in Jalen Hurts. You still have a great receiving core with Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown. And with Dallas Schulte and then, or not Dallas Schulte, I can't think of the name off the top of my head, but the tight end over there, and it's going to bother me, Dallas Goedert. You have some amazing talent, even that offensive line, still one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. Your defense rated amongst the top defenses in the NFL. But it still feels like that team is just mentally fragile. That one thing goes wrong and they are done. And there's a team like the Green Bay Packers that can actually go out there and cause and wreak that kind of chaos for the Philadelphia fan base. Adriana Diaz let me know that it will happen tomorrow. She's preparing for the snow and ice. Thankfully, she is working from home. Oh, man, those work from home jobs. Those are some great jobs. You don't longer have to worry about the commute, worry about any of that stuff. I never realized how much I loved working from home until I got laid off from iHeart and I didn't have to drive all clear across El Paso, take 40 minutes in a bunch of traffic to show up to an empty building. Like, it was working from home is one of those great experiences that you get. And then especially recently with the job that I had, the place that I was working at, my place of business was maybe a 5-minute drive away on a bad day. So I am making sure that every position I have is either working from home or I can commute there in a heartbeat. And especially in the Mustang, you take the top off, drive, get into the parking lot, you're a happy guy, especially in the summertime. Not right now. It is cold. Very, very cold in the state of Texas. Hopefully Ted Cruz still hangs around with us. Not going to talk about that. Going to go back to sports. Stick with sports, Tip. That's what you do, guy. All right. But the fragile Philadelphia Eagles franchise needs a win over Green Bay. And I will say this as well. Green Bay needs this game, right? Like, to dig more into the ego of Aaron Rodgers, who said that this was a bad team that was built around him. For them to make the playoffs last year, and you can say, okay, the Jets didn't make the playoffs, but that's because Aaron Rodgers was injured all year. This year, you have a healthy Aaron Rodgers. You have the Jets just underperforming. If I'm the Green Bay Packers fan base, if I'm the Green Bay Packers brass, if I'm the people that run the Green Bay Packers, I am begging for the possibility of a long, sustained playoff run for Green Bay. I don't know if they'll make it to the NFC Championship game. I think they've got a lot of obstacles in their way. If they win this game against Philly, Green Bay is going to Detroit. Detroit's the best team in the NFL. More than likely not going to be able to win that game if you're Green Bay. But what if, right? You've already done it. You've dug the knife into the ego of Aaron Rodgers, the huge ego of Aaron Rodgers, despite the fact he did something hilarious during a press conference, which was he was asked by Ian Rappaport, someone close to you said that this could be the last game, blah, 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 blah. And he goes full Tropic Thunder and says, someone said they're close to me? I get that reference. I don't know how many other people are out there getting those references. Everyone should know by now my preference in movie is stoner movies. So if you give me something like Tropic Thunder and a quote from Tropic Thunder, I'm happy. And then I had to realize that it's Aaron Rodgers, and that guy is just not good. I tried Medusa. I tried. You told me, watch Enigma. I watched the first episode, and all I saw was just some guy complaining about how tough his life is because he's a superstar in the NFL, and I don't get to have my privacy. And when. I would honestly believe that, Aaron Rodgers, if you didn't constantly go out seeking the camera, if you didn't constantly go out seeking the limelight. All of that would make so much more sense if you weren't who you are. Do athletes deserve their privacy? Of course they do. We all deserve our privacy. But I cannot sit up here and do a show like this, talk the way that I speak, and then get upset at people whenever they're like, you're stupid. because I do say stupid things sometimes, right? To me, it's just funny whenever people come at me in my social media because they would never do that in real life. Medusa Design saying, oh no, you leave him alone. Leave Aaron alone. How many people are going to get that reference? Jesus, Tip. I'm getting older and older by the minute that I'm doing this show. Normally it's Tommy Cananza and Augustine Pimentel that are the oldest people watching this show, that are a part of this show, associated with this show. Today it's going to be me. I am Clint Eastwood in Gran Torino. Everybody needs to get away from my lawn because I am done with Aaron Rodgers and this whole thing that he had. Like, I hope for his sake that he comes back and plays next year and is just terrible again, because he is not who he was. The Aaron Rodgers that we saw in Green Bay just a couple of years ago is no more. He is done with, right? I'm sitting here watching him, and I'm all about it, right? Like, there's a part of me that's very interested in drinking some ayahuasca. There's a part of me that's very interested in going out and trying some of these, I can't even necessarily call them drugs because it's not a drug, but some of these hallucinogens that are out there just to kind of see what it's like, right? They say you get the ego death, you get all this and that, blah, 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 blah. I'm cool with that. I want to at least once experience what that stuff is like. But I see Aaron Rodgers do it, and I just think to myself, if I drink this ayahuasca, I am going to become an even more annoying douche. And I just don't want to be that guy. And I don't want to be like, oh, I did this thing because of Aaron Rodgers. My good friend, he was drafted by the Texas Rangers. His name is Danny Hoban. He's got his own podcast doing his own thing. Love that guy. Got nothing but love for my dude. He and I actually were planning out, maybe one of these days we go on one of those retreats because he's in Arizona now, and we go drink some ayahuasca and we just see what it's like. Augustine questioning, more of a douche? I mean, the slight possibility I can be worse. Slight, just very slight possibility that I can get worse than what I normally am. But I keep like looking at this stuff and I'm like, man, like, it's something that is very interesting to me, right? Like, Aaron Rodgers and I, we have a lot of parallels in our life. Growing up with like very religious families, if you smoke a cigarette or whatever, you're a horrible person, you're going to hell, that type of stuff, right? Like, that's how I grew up. I totally get it. I also grew up on a farm without any like real assets or anything like that, unlike some people, right? So I'm sitting here thinking about it like, man, what would this be like, right? Like I see some of his story and I'm like, wow, I get it, dude. Like, I get where you're coming from. And then he talks and I'm just like, just shut the hell up, please. For the love of God. You are so lucky to be in the position that you're in, that if it was anybody else that was another quarterback, make it Jameis Winston. Make it Jameis Winston out here drinking ayahuasca. Does Jameis Winston still have a job in the NFL? If Dak Prescott left his team during OTAs to go into a dark room and just get high, would he still be on a team? But Aaron Rodgers is afforded the I guess the good grace of being, I'm Aaron Rodgers. I get to do this, right? And I'm not saying this as like a race thing. I think I use those two guys and Jameis Winston and Dak Prescott, and it's going to be looked at as like a race thing. It's not that. It's they are underperforming quarterbacks. If it's Tom Brady, cool. He's out there going doing his thing. Make it Brock Purdy. Make it Jared Goff. If they're out there doing that stuff, right? Are they getting the same good graces that Aaron Rodgers is? And the answer to that is strictly no. We just let Aaron Rodgers be Aaron Rodgers because we know this guy's going to go away and he's kind of a douche. And he's just going to go do his thing, and maybe not. People will like him, people don't like him. I don't care anymore, right? Again, I will say this flatly. I do have a little bit of a bias. I do know his brother, Jordan. Jordan and I worked together on a show over at ESPN whenever I first got to ESPN, and we developed a lot of a friendship. The pain that I saw in my friend whenever he would talk about his brother made me realize that maybe there's consequences to the way that you act as an individual. Medusa Design saying, I'm drinking ayahuasca in your lawn right now when it's not freezing, though. Okay, not right now, but later on, whenever it's not freezing. And then says, yeah, but the race thing is real as well. Yes and no, right? Like I refuse to believe, and maybe it's just my ignorance on this, right? But I refuse to believe that everything is mired in that. But all the examples that we see really kind of demonstrate to us that it is, right? Like everything does. And again, maybe I could have used Baker Mayfield. If that's Baker Mayfield out there doing that, doing ayahuasca, leaving his team, does he still have a contract? Does any quarterback that's not Tom Brady, if it's Ben Roethlisberger and he leaves his team to go do ayahuasca, is he still getting the benefit of the doubt? And the answer to that is simply no, right? It's whatever Aaron Rodgers is, and maybe it's just me and my absolute hatred of Aaron Rodgers that is just unrelenting, where I sit back and I see this guy and I think to myself, Jesus, dude, you're so lucky to be in the position you're in. But to sit there and whining about how, oh, well, I did this, and whenever I got to college, I realized, life isn't like how the church says it is. Well, no stuff, right, guy? Like, genuinely, did you think that life was all puppy dogs and cupcakes? Like, is that what we genuinely thought life was growing up in the 90s and early 2000s? Is that what you thought it was? Whenever you got to college and you were not recruited by anybody and you had to go play in junior college, were you still thinking to yourself, man, life is super fair? Of course you weren't. But to sit back and act that way is just, it's insane to me. Woosah. I got to go drink my ayahuasca now. I don't even have coffee left. I woke up early this morning, made some chorizo and eggs, drank some coffee. Maybe that's what it is. I'm super wired right now. Just I am on one. We're railing against Aaron Rodgers for the remainder of time. It's like my Destiny asked me the other day, because we were watching The Big Bang Theory, and she asked, like, who is on your enemies list, right? And I'm like, I don't have an enemies list. And then I had to go back and think about that. It's LeVar Burton. One, like LeVar Burton's on there. And if you don't know the story behind LeVar Burton and myself, I was working with Power 102. We were doing a Comic-Con thing. First off, you're signing autographs at a Comic-Con. Let's assess where our life is at this moment, LeVar Burton. And it's me and my partner, Monica Castillo. She's awesome. She's an MC. She's doing all kinds of stuff. We're at the Comic-Con, at the convention center. We're walking around trying to do interviews for the radio, for social media hits, all those good things. And we see LeVar Burton, man, reading Rainbow Guys over there, doing his thing. And he's not even at his booth, but we just walk over to him like, hey, man, we saw you got out of there. We know you're busy. Maybe we get a couple minutes of your time to do this interview real quick for our radio station social media page. And he looks us up and down and says, radio, and then walks off. And I was sitting there thinking to myself, like, dude, you're LeVar Burton. If not for The Big Bang Theory, would have been forgotten about, right? And that's really why Monica and I wanted to talk to him, is because we're big fans of The Big Bang Theory. So for me, it was like, man, LeVar Burton, you are number one on the enemies list. He will never know this, because I think I've mentioned it a few times since then, and I've gotten zero reaction from him, which is probably good. Then it's Aaron Rodgers. And it's just his face. I don't know if you've ever seen Step Brothers, where he's like, I don't know what it is about your face, but I want to deliver one of these right to it. That's how I feel about it. He just has a punchable face. Like, if you saw that dude at like Walmart, you would just look at him and be like, oh, this guy. I picture him walking around in Walmart with no socks on, but has flops, or he has socks on, but they have a hole in them, and he's wearing flops at the same time. I just picture him in flops and gross ass feet. Like that's what I associate with Aaron. I bet he smells bad. He's gonna be in like a Shaw. Like he's just one of those guys, one of those dirty, nasty dudes that you see in Walmart that is on the people of Walmart social media pages, where it's like, man, that's why I never want to go shop at Walmart. Aaron Rodgers is the face of Walmart shoppers. One of these days, I'll be able to rein in just my stupidity. That's great. I was also doing that just because I want to put it on social media. Let's see how it goes. I almost got through the whole thing with it as well. Tommy Conhasa saying, what you got against reading Rainbow Tip? Man, that fool don't know how to read. Go back and watch Reading Rainbow. He ain't reading. It's other people reading. I don't even know. I don't think I ever watched an episode of Reading Rainbow. Oh, butterfly in the sky. Take a look. It's in a book. Boom! In your face, LeVar Burton. And I had nothing against him until he just like slighted me as though I was, some lowly, pathetic radio guy, which I am. I am a lowly, pathetic radio guy. You don't have to make it worse. I know what my life is, LeVar Burton. You don't have to make it worse. You don't have to highlight it. Like, oh, look at this idiot. He's on the radio. You got a face for radio, kid. I know. That's why I'm on radio. Never be able to be on TV. Also grew up in a time frame where, like, when you were on TV, you had to, like, shave your beard. And I have that mindset of, if I ever get on TV, I'm not shaving my beard. I'll trim it. I'll do whatever I got to do. But if I shave this thing, I look like a baby beluga whale, and it's never going to happen. I am not getting rid of this ever again, ever since my days in the military. Keeping a beard. Fully keeping a beard. Don't care what the job is. Even if they're like, you got to wear a gas mask and you have to get rid of the beard, I will just shave a gas mask area around my beard and let the rest of it grow in. LeVar Burton. Old Reading Rainbow ass. Butterfly in the sky ass. I'm supposed to be doing an interview later on today with National Streaming Sports, and they're going to be like, nah, no more with this guy. We're done. He's aiming at Walmart. He's aiming at Aaron Rodgers. He's aiming at LeVar Burton. All these things. Who is this guy? Who is this maniac that we've allowed onto our platform with National Streaming Sports? Remember, we are brought to you by our friends over at www.myhappynuts.com/Mike Tipton. That's the link that you want to go to in order to save up to 15% on all kinds of bundles and packages and all kinds of things over at www.myhappynuts.com. They are a top 10 men's anti-chafing product for 2024. So look at them cracking the top 10. Let's support our friends over at www.myhappynuts.com and get them into the top 5 for 2025. Because My Happy Nuts, if you haven't tried it, you are doing yourself a disservice. You want that anti-chafe stick, and you want, of course, the comfort cream to help you get along with no longer having to have the weird sidestep out, especially in summertime. Guys, I'm telling you right now, it's El Paso. It's going to get hotter. Yes, I know it's 10 degrees outside right now, but you're going to bundle yourself up, and you're going to get swamp ass. You don't want all that. You don't want the duck buttered. You don't want any of that stuff. I almost got through it without laughing. You don't want to have any of the issues that come along with the chafe and the sweat in the grundle area. Take care of yourself with www.myhappynuts.com/Mike Tipton or use promo code Mike Tipton, all one word. Almost died here on my own show. Been looking for a break where I can actually drink water. This is how much you can tell how passionate I am about my unrelenting, unwavering hatred of LeVar Burton, where I went through that whole segment without drinking anything. Got to keep the vocal cords nice and lubed up. Pause. So we spoke about the Philadelphia Eagles, what this would mean to the franchise if they lose. I know it seems like it was forever ago, but if they lose to the Green Bay Packers, and it would be devastating for that franchise. Like there is no way this team can lose in the first round of the playoffs and keep Nick Sirianni. And there is no way that this team can lose. I genuinely feel like they have to make. I genuinely feel like they have to make an NFC Championship game appearance in order to justify keeping Nick Sirianni around. Again, I've said it since the onset of this show. That team has won in spite of Nick Sirianni doing everything he can to lose games. Bad-mouthing the crowd in Cleveland after you won, you beat Cleveland, guy. Well, like, they're the Browns. They've been through enough. The mouth breather Mireya Reyes, I am looking at this right now, so let's see what it says. It says, hi, new to your show, 2 things. You cannot deny someone's experience, so if he opens up and says his life, you can't deny it because you perceive your experience as similar. Even kids have the same household experience, different parents, different depending on different factors. Aaron can do what does because of what he has proven he can do in the game of football. He can still perform, which is something you can say for other quarterbacks you mentioned. I am a Packer fan. Okay, so I'm totally about that, Mireya. I do have a background in a lot of psychology, and it took a lot of learning for me to realize, right, that even though my sister and I were both adopted by the same parents, we're both I guess blood siblings, right? I guess it's a weird way of saying that, but she and I both have the same mother and the same father biologically, right? We're biological siblings, but we were adopted by the same parents. And it took learning about psychology for me to realize, like, yes, we internalize our issues differently, right? I will say this when it comes to certain things. I do a lot of things here just to make people mad, right? Like you're new to the show, so I will pull back the curtain a little bit. I will say things like that just to make people mad because I want to see what the reaction is going to be like whenever I share it out on Instagram, because I love that everyone's reaction to me is you're just a big fat guy. I know, I get it, right? The second thing is, yes, Aaron Rodgers can, I guess, get a little bit of a pass because of who he was. But you cannot wreck a franchise the way that he did with the New York Jets and then try to make yourself the victim. I refuse to allow that to happen. You can't say, okay, Jets, you need to trade away all this talent to the team that I was on, that I said was bad, that made it to 2 straight NFC championship games. You need to trade away draft capital and talent and this and that to sign my friends who are underachieving with me as their quarterback anyway, and Alan Lazard and Randall Cobb, Devontae Adams, etc., right? He went there to that team. He handcuffed them. He strong-armed them into doing what they did. Now, obviously, it's up to the team to placate to him, to say, yes, like, we'll do whatever you want, Aaron Rodgers. We are on your side. But with that comes the responsibility of you need to play the way that you need to play. And early on in the season, up until I guess it was week 14, Aaron Rodgers was unequivocally bad. He did just enough at the end of the season to salvage his individual stats, to pad the stats for his friends Devontae Adams and Alan Lazard. But he didn't do what he went to that franchise to do, and is now already talking about, well, I'm done. I'm not going to play here again next year. Where it's going to be gone, whatever, blah, 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 blah. They traded away talent. They acquiesced and got him the people that he wanted, gave them long-term deals just for him to abandon them. It's the LeBron James factor of, like, what you see, what he did with Miami whenever he left, what he did with Cleveland whenever he left both times, and what the LA Lakers are currently having to deal with right now, right? Whenever the team willingly, and again, it's on them because they want to be, you want to make your superstar happy. But whenever the team willingly gets rid of all the assets they possibly can to placate to one guy who is not in it for the long term, and it's just simply because Aaron Rodgers can't be in it for the long term, right? He's 40 years old. Tom Brady is such an outlier that we cannot compare anybody to Tom Brady. Aaron Rodgers handcuffed the New York Jets. And now that it's difficult, now that he sees how hard it is to win there, how bad the team is all around, now he wants out. I am a firm believer in you make your bed, you lie in it, right? If I say something that ruins my life, I made my bed, I lie in it. I have to. That's what happens with all of us, right? You show up to work one day, you're drunk. You have to accept the responsibility that you were the person that ruined what it was that you had going. There is never, and has never been, with Aaron Rodgers, an internal look into himself to have any type of accountability. And that goes back to the Green Bay Packers, right? Like, even with the Green Bay Packers, we're talking about a team that made back-to-back NFC championship appearances. One of those games they lose because instead of running into the end zone, he decides that at the 3-yard line. He wants to throw a ball and try to force it to someone despite having a wide open lane. Whether or not he would have made it to the end zone, we can question. But when you look at the film and there's 10 yards of separation and 3 yards you need to get, any other quarterback is getting raked over the coals, right? Any other quarterback is. If that's Dak Prescott, ESPN is talking about it all summer long. If it's Jalen Hurts, if Jalen Hurts does that this year, ESPN, Fox Sport, all of them are going to be raking Jalen Hurts over the coals for not doing what he had to do. You cannot have a team that makes it to the NFC Championship games in back-to-back seasons, one win away from making it to the Super Bowl, and then come out and say, this team isn't talented enough for me to win. They were talented enough to get you one game within the Super Bowl. How is it that they're not talented enough to win? And then whenever you leave that franchise, have them still have the success they had. We can say Jordan Love is a pretty good quarterback. We can say that the future for Green Bay is much brighter than the future that you have with New York right now, because what can the Jets do following the exodus of Aaron Rodgers, right? So it's not that I'm sitting here hating on him because I think he's a terrible human being or, whatever. That stuff is just fodder, right? Whenever I look at what Aaron Rodgers has done throughout his career, unequivocally a great quarterback. The greatest of all time, not even close. But there has never been a sense of, I did this. He came into this season. His head coach was fired. His GM was fired. They got rid of a bunch of players that he didn't want on the team anymore. Careers were altered. People's lives were changed because of the decisions that Aaron Rodgers wanted to make. And I will unequivocally refuse to allow one player to have that type of power over a franchise. Whenever you have one guy making decisions that are impacting the lives of other people and he's not taking any responsibility for his actions in it, that is a major problem. And that's the issue that I have with Aaron Rodgers. Even if he came out today and was like, you know what, guys, I made some bad decisions. My bad. I'd be like, you know what? I get it. We all need to be a little contrite in our life, right? We all need to have a little bit of self-realization in what we've done wrong that could have been better, right? You don't get that from him. Instead, he goes on Pat McAfee, and it's, the team it wasn't a good enough team. Where is your accountability in this? As the guy that got the head coach fired, a defensive head coach, now that the defensive play caller is gone, the defense falls off the cliff. If their defense had just been a little bit better, we're talking about a team that lost very close games because they didn't score enough points, that maybe, just maybe, a flip of a coin with a slightly better defense, you might have been in the conversation to be in the playoffs. This whole season could have been salvaged off of just little things like that. The general manager is gone. The head coach is gone. That means the remainder of the coaching staff is going to be let go after this season. We're talking about multiple people that were impacted by the decisions of this guy, and ultimately the way that he was able to convince the owner, who we've also seen using his 16-year-old son to determine how his trades are going to go. Not the brightest of guys, so he's very easily manipulated. How that guy's decisions impacted an entire franchise. There needs to be some sort of accountability there, and there will never be. And instead, what it is I'm doing this Netflix show, and I am saying, oh man, life is very hard for me. I don't know if you've seen The Office. I'm not a big TV watcher. I've never seen The Office, but Aaron Rodgers will say something, just like one thing, and you'll be like, hell yeah, that's a great thing that Aaron Rodgers said. But then he does the side look at the camera like, did you catch that? Did you catch what I just said right here? Yeah, that was for you, baby. That was for you. It just seems disingenuous. And maybe I'm an asterisk, I'm a jerk for thinking that way about it, but it just seems that disingenuous. But I apologize once again. Again, I need to realize that there will be new people that tune into the show. I hope that didn't turn you off. I hope even this diatribe, this soliloquy that I went on right now wasn't something where you're like, this dude's a jerk, right? But I'm just trying to give my aspect on it. It's not something where I'm just like, Aaron Rodgers is a jerk, and I'm just going to walk off and go do my thing. No. There were real life consequences for the decisions he's made that he has yet to even hold himself culpable for. And that to me is a disservice to the people that really go out and support him, the fan bases that are out there that support him, and even the people in his life that he has decided he no longer wants contact with simply because of XYZ. Trust me, as someone that's done that myself, I understand how difficult that is to get away from people that you feel like don't have your best interest in mind. But I will say, even me, as much of a jerk as I am, understand where I have my shortcomings as a brother, as a son, as a father, as a husband, as blah, 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 blah. I can look at myself and say, I got to work on these things. And I just look at Aaron Rodgers and his whole thing, even on McAfee, even on all the other things that he's kind of inundated himself in, is it's everyone else's problem to deal with. I'm good. And that's fine. I wish I had that mindset. I really do. But it's not everyone else's problem, dude. It's your problem. Whenever everyone has a problem with you, it's you that is the problem. And if you're happy with that, cool. Like as long as he's happy, that's all that matters, I guess, right? At the end of the day, as long as Aaron Rodgers is happy, that's all that matters. Oof. Didn't expect to go on that, but thank you, Midea, for the comment. I appreciate the back and forth. And again, I want that from y'all. I want, if I'm saying something stupid, tell me, yo, Tip, why are you talking like that? And I will have no problem letting you know my angle of it. And again, it can be one of those things as simple as we can agree to disagree. I'm fine with that. But this is the reason why. And I am good with it. I am all about discourse, right? And that's the only way that I feel like we can get better, not just as individuals, but as a society at all. Mireya saying, I am not offended or think you are a jerk, but I also know it's a team sport, people that allow him to make decisions, but I also think he took care of his people, which long-term, with long-term contracts, at the end of the day, he is happy. That's it, right? But that's also the thing is, the NFL, you can have a long-term contract. There are only a handful of contracts in the NFL right now that are guaranteed contracts. So even the contracts that he got, Alan Lazard and Devontae Adams and a couple of the people that he went over to the Jets, they were all 1-year deals that were so incentive heavy that like Alan Lazard didn't meet his incentives. So he's not going to get the full part of the contract, right? He's not going to meet the minimum requirements for him to get the whole deal on the contract. And I know that there's going to be a point with Aaron Rodgers where he's like, you know what, that's on me, like to his friends, because he does seem like a very good friend to his friends. And every single one of us, I believe, would do that, right? Like it's the LeBron James and Bronny James situation. Every single one of us as a parent would love the possibility of being able to get our child anything, right? Like LeBron James going out there and getting Bronny James a contract to go play with the LA Lakers, I'm all about. I would love to do that with my son. If my son wanted to come in here right now and talk about dinosaurs or sharks on my show, I'd let him, right? Just because I think that that's a cool thing to be able to do. I would love to see my kids follow my footsteps, do much better than anything I ever could have done or imagined in this. So I totally get that, taking care of your people, taking care of your family. But with the NFL, the contracts are built as such that money isn't real and it isn't guaranteed. You have to meet certain incentives. Aaron Rodgers' contract was guaranteed. Everyone else's wasn't. The quarterback is normally the one that has the guaranteed deals. Everyone else has to meet certain incentives, right? It was the crux of the show that I had on Monday, which was like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The game is over. They got the ball back. All they got to do is take a knee. But what do? They drop back. They pass the ball to Mike Evans because that one catch right there for 6 yards was worth $3 million additional dollars, right? NFL players will take care of their own to make sure that their contracts meet their incentives. I'm all about that. I was listening to some guy. I've got nothing but love for him. His name is David Sampson. He was the former president of the Miami Marlins, and he was talking about how he would bench guys so they didn't meet their incentives. That to me is wrong. So if the players are like playing for each other and they're doing all these things to try to reach those incentives, I'm all about it. It's just that the NFL contracts with all the other players are so incentive heavy. And some of these are like, you got to win a Super Bowl and be a Super Bowl MVP to reach all of your money. That it's great for us to be like, oh, this player signed a contract for X amount of dollars. But those dollars are not real. And a lot of the times those dollars are not tangible. Like a part of the $30 million that CeeDee Lamb got, which is just crazy to say that CeeDee Lamb is going to get $30 million over the next couple of years. He's already not going to get, because a part of it was you have to be a Super Bowl MVP or an MVP this year or lead the league in receptions this year. And he wasn't able to do it. A lot of the reason why CeeDee Lamb continued to play for the Dallas Cowboys this year was to try to get him to those incentives. Jamar Chase just ultimately made the bridge a little too far for him to cross, and they made the decision mutually to like sit back. So they might have given him a little percentage of what he could have had, but because he didn't reach the full incentive, he's not going to reach the full $30 million. That's the thing that I don't like about NFL contracts, because every other sport is fully guaranteed. NFL contracts, yes, you can say you took care of your friends. Yes, your friend is probably going to make X amount of money, but they are not going to reach the full amount of money that's promised in that contract unless your team is transcendent. But like Kansas City, right? Like they're able to have all their players on that team reach those contracts incentives because they're a good team. They finished the NFL season this year with the best record in the NFL. There's going to be kickbacks and incentives that they get for that as well. Medusa Design saying, I absolutely love your knowledge and passion for football. Thanks for sharing you with us. I appreciate that as well, Medusa. But again, like my whole thing is, if I say something y'all don't agree with, don't just turn it off, right? Like let's have a discourse. And even at points, I will share the link out there. You want to come on here, jump on here and be like, yo, Tip, this is what I think. I will give you the floor. I will not interrupt you. I will allow you to do your thing, right? Because I'm a firm believer in conversation, and discourse allows for better understanding. We seem to lack that a lot, not just in the sports world, but in general, right? And again, I'm glad, Mireya, that you decided to tune in, that you decided to even make a comment. I am so glad about that, because it shows that you have a different perspective on what I think than what some other people may have. Because there are going to be a lot of people that are like, you know what? He's right. But if you feel I'm wrong, by all means, please say it. Tommy Cananza, he's got no problem saying it. I mentioned the Philadelphia Eagles. I get this on a constant basis. Although he did lose our bet the other day that if the Eagles lost to the Cowboys, I can no longer put them in my top 10. I think I'm going to do a top 10 tomorrow, Tommy. But I think you and I know where I'm going to go on this, Tommy. We've sent messages before, so I think you and I will know. Whenever I put out the list tomorrow, we'll see how you agree with that. Mireya saying, see, I disagree with that. As parents, we shouldn't go out there and solve our kids' problems. Then you would create the errands of the world who don't take accountability, which is your original complaint. But you have a cool show, and I played devil's advocate. Thanks for engaging. I didn't say that I was going to like make it easy for my son. I said I would love for my son to be able to do this, right? Ultimately, at the end of the day, Bronny James has to be good enough to continue to play. End of discussion. If he's not good enough to play, he gets sent down to the G League, which is exactly what happened. He got the moment. You get that moment. Like I'll do what it takes for the moment. But if my son wants to do this and doesn't want to put in the work, doesn't realize, and that's the thing a lot of people don't realize with podcasting and stuff like this, it's difficult. It takes time. You have to be willing to take any type of criticism. You have to be willing to put up with people saying all kinds of negative things about you. Hell, Augustine, and I think maybe Tommy, I don't know if Tommy, you've been listening since I was on the radio with 600, but Augustine can attest to this. People used to call into the show to complain about my voice. Just about how bad my voice sounded because I needed to lay off testosterone and like all that stuff. So ultimately, at the end of the day, like if I gave my son the ability to do this, but he doesn't want to put in the work, that's on him. I set you up. It's up to you to keep it going. And that's exactly the same thing with Aaron Rodgers. That's exactly the same thing with LeBron James and Bronny, right? Like, and that's what I'm getting at, right? Is like Aaron Rodgers does this to the team, has his friends and all them come in. They super underachieve. And at the end of the day, it's not, my bad. It's, oh, that's your problem. That's your problem. Tommy Cananza saying he has listened for that long. Jesus Christ. Like you and Augustine, I know there's like another handful of people out there that have been listening since, 2015. August of 2015 will be 10 years of me doing sports stuff. May of 2025 rather will be 10 years of me doing this whole industry, where I started off as a volunteer at the local NPR station, Late Night Jazz at Tipton's on 88.5 FM KTEP El Paso, your NPR station for the Southwest. Wow, the fact I can still roll that off, and it's been 8 years since I worked there, Jesus. But you guys that like have stuck with it this long, I am super thankful to y'all, because holy hell, I wouldn't be able to deal with me for 10 years. But again, thank you so much. And I want the devil's advocate. Please, please give me all the devil's advocate you can get, because that is the role that I always play. That's what made mine and Kaplowitz's relationship so great, is I would always be the guy that he would say something, and even if I didn't necessarily completely disagree, I would find a way to at least carry on the conversation. A conversation. The traffic report with Mike Tipton and Sal Montes, LOL. That's right. For those of you that remember that, man, I still get, like, it's crazy how I'll still get people every now and then that'll be like, you did the traffic on KLAQ, right? I'm like, yeah, for a brief period of time. It was Mike Tipton with QView Traffic, brought to you by Bud Light. This Bud is for you. Always weird to me that a beer sponsor sponsored the traffic report in the afternoon. It was just a weird thing to me. That's why I played so much games with it. Well, man, you talk about flashbacks right there. There's a part of me, like, one of these days, I want to do one of those podcasts where they interview me, and they just like talk about the journey that I had to get to where I am right now. And I'm by no means, I know what this is, right? Like this is a podcast where I'm super lucky to do it. I'm super lucky to have, the conversations that we've had on here. So I realize like how lucky, how blessed I am to even be in this position. But I would love to just have like one of those conversations where I actually open up about the stuff, because I need someone that brings the questions out of me, not necessarily, me just talking about it, because I hate talking about myself. I genuinely do. I get tired of my own voice. I don't know how y'all do it, but I get tired of my own voice. So I need someone, if they want like those things, to actually ask me questions. Maybe we'll do that on Friday. I'll just open it up. I'll put out like a poll on Facebook or a poll out there and be like, hey, what questions do you want me to answer? I was going to say, see that right there? Personal growth. I was going to say something, but I won't do it because of our audience on Roku. And shout out to the people that are watching on Roku. I don't know how many out there are genuinely watching on Roku, how many are like, this guy is actually good, but I appreciate those of you that haven't turned it off. Shout out to National Streaming Sports for continuing to let me just be me, which is all I've really ever asked for, which is why I understand the Aaron Rodgers mindset of just let me do what I want to do. Right? Like, let me be the individual that I am, because that's all I would ask for too. The only thing is I want a little bit of accountability. And that's always been my thing on this show media. And if you continue to watch, you'll see as well. When I'm wrong, I'll say it. I'm working on a sounder that I want to play on the show for whenever I'm wrong. It'll just be like, this guy's an idiot. Like just things like that, because I believe that accountability is something that's been lost on a lot of pundits that are out there that talk about sports. And it's just one of those things where it's like, it's sports, dude. It shouldn't be that serious. Unless it's about LeVar Burton, in which case, go fly a kite reading Rainbow, guy. Once again, it is the Tipping Point with Mike Tipton right here on Roku, on X, on YouTube, on Facebook as well. I appreciate the discourse that we've had today. I didn't get to go to some of my topics, but you know what? That's fine. I am all about it. I've said it a million times, even whenever I was on 1380, that if I have a complete show rundown, which I have right here, and I don't reach all the topics, that means it was a really good show. If I have to reach all these topics on here, it means that you guys are not talking to me, and I'm just screaming out into the void that is the internet. So I appreciate the back and forth and the discourse that we've had. I do want to get this one, though. Tomorrow, I am going to have Jonathan Hood from ESPN 1000 join me on the show. It's going to be pre-recorded. He was doing the University of Illinois Chicago Flames basketball game yesterday, so we weren't able to connect. But I am going to have Jonathan Hood on to talk about the Chicago Bears, their interest in Mike McCarthy, and now what I'm hearing after the Dallas Cowboys denied the Bears, the ability to interview Mike McCarthy. I'm looking at that in two different ways. That means the Dallas Cowboys are probably going to keep Mike McCarthy, which Tommy Cananza, I know you don't want to hear that. But the Dallas Cowboys are more than likely going to keep Mike McCarthy. And now the Chicago Bears are turning their interview over to interviewing former Seattle Seahawks head coach Pete Carroll about that position. I was watching ESPN. Marcus Canty on Unsportsmanlike. Shout out to Unsportsmanlike, one of my good friends, Pat Costello, the producer over there, Nuno Teixeira, the producer over there for that show on ESPN. Chris Canty coming out and saying he would rather have the Raiders job over the Bears job. And I will say this, at least the Bears have a quarterback. You can say what you want about Caleb Williams. I think he's going to be okay. But what do the Raiders have? And I look at what they've got in salary cap. Las Vegas is going to have about $112 million in salary cap. Chicago is going to have about $83 million, so a $30 million difference in salary cap here. But the Bears have more talent on the team in general. We'll talk more about the Chicago Bears, more about the Raiders. We'll break down the NFL playoffs starting tomorrow. Who's going to win what games, at least according to me? How loud wrong am I going to be in the first round of the playoffs? We'll do that and more whenever we come back tomorrow. Thank you all so much for tuning in to the Tipping Point with Mike Tipton right here on Roku, on X, on YouTube, and on Facebook. Shout out to our friends over at National Streaming Sports. And visit RevAutoCarCare.com. Use promo code Tipton33. And, of course, visit www.myhappynuts.com/Mike Tipton. We'll see you all tomorrow.